Mike Norvell, due to several issues, has been fired from Florida State University and is no longer the head coach. We're going to talk about who Florida State should be targeting and why we think that on today's hypothetical edition of Locked On Seminoles.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, folks, last week we gave you what you wanted when you said, hey, we want to hear what's going to happen if we go to the SEC. And today we're going to give you something else you want to talk about. Twitter has been ablaze, calling for the head of one Michael Norvell as the head coach due to several recruiting misses and a litany of other things, namely winning 8 games in 2 seasons. Although he was the only coach on the planet that had to deal with COVID. Right. So that's an excuse. It didn't affect any other coaches. But that aside, we are going with the hypothetical that he has been relieved of his head coaching duties. Folks, if you're here, though, first, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube. Make sure you like the individual video. Take 2 seconds to subscribe. We are over 1,200 now. We're pushing to that 1,500 mark. And I think by the end of the season, we'll get to 2,000. So be a part of the Army. Be a part of the journey. Love us the way we love you, although I don't think that's possible because words can't describe how much I appreciate y'all coming here each and every day. So I almost say we follow historical info that we have. I mean, Florida State, fortunately, has only fired one coach in the past 40 years, but it was after the loss that the boosters couldn't stomach. So I'm thinking Drake, who's like our 6th game? I'm thinking if, let's say it starts 1-5, is that possible?
What's really funny is the 6th game, it is NC State, but historically, what's the one team in one game that FSU's finally like, okay, we need
Wake Forest.
Wake Forest.
It's always
Week 5
Wake Forest.
Week 5 is Wake Forest.
Interesting. Is that it? Do we have a bye week after that?
I believe we have a bye week after Clemson, which is week 7.
Yeah. Oh.
Yes.
So okay, so let's set up our hypothetical. Folks, you got a business consultant and 2 lawyers that have spent, the past couple years covering this team and have loved the team their entire lives. So we can't do any half-ass hypotheticals here. There's got to be a scenario. So
Law
Drake,
school hypo.
Right, this is full on. All right, so we're going to say he's 1-5, so he's lost to LSU, lost to Louisville, lost to Wake Forest, and then he goes out there and loses in Carter Finley Stadium to NC State. Do we give it? You think he gets one more chance against Clemson? Let's say they keep him for Clemson, and then bye week is when they just are like, Alford basically says, hey, after Clemson, walks in the locker room and goes, yeah, we're gonna have to do this. Who do y'all want to target as your number 1, your number 2, and your number 3 coaches?
Dave, you go first because I don't want to steal your thunder because I think our board is going to be very similar.
Okay. We basically did this episode unintentionally, I think, when we talked about Mike Norvell's comparators, because one of the main criteria for me at this point is going to be that it's somebody with substantial Power 5 experience, even if not head coaching experience, although obviously that's a plus. It's got to be somebody who I think their name resonates with the fan base and the college football landscape. And when I say that, I know this name doesn't have a ton of head coaching experience, but you look at a guy like Dave Aranda, who went to a very troubled Baylor program and turned that around pretty damn quickly and got them good. Florida State and Baylor should not be on the same level. I think that's a guy you should be able to pull. You should be able to pay him more. If you're serious about getting big time recruits and playing big time football, he's already gotten Baylor way quicker than Mike Norvell, by the way, into top 10 territory. That's where we want to be. So that's number 1 on my board, and it's really not close.
Okay, who's your number 1?
I like Dave Aranda. I actually probably would have him on my number 2 spots for all the reasons Dave just listed. And also, before we get into everything, like some coaches that obviously would love to grab but can't grab, we're not going to list them down here. Like Kyle Whittingham, to me, probably will be number 1, but we know for a fact that guy's never leaving Utah.
If we're being realistic, right?
If we're being realistic here right now. My number 1 option probably would be someone that I think is really attainable, someone that is already basically not on record, but for those in the know, like, no, he already wants to come down here, and someone that Mac's not a huge fan of, and that's Lane Kiffin. And to me, Lane Kiffin is something
I'm a
that
huge fan of Lane Kiffin.
you don't
I don't know.
You're not a big fan of Lane Kiffin being here for the long term, which is a valid. It's a
I'm
valid
worried about Lane
criticism.
Kiffin in Tallahassee.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Hey, listen, Jerry Pruitt almost had the similar problems, and we won a natty with him coordinating our defense. Hopefully,
And
the
then he
same
left
can happen with Lane.
immediately.
Yeah, that's why we only got it for 1
Right.
year.
Hey, and it was a marvelous 1 year. We would trade that. We
was.
would not trade that 1 year for anything else in the world. But with Lane
point.
Kiffin overall, you already have someone with a valuable offense, of a scheme that wins you games and also outscores all your opponents. 2 is recruiting. Not only in the high school ranks is elite,
True.
but transfer wise, you will get the best of the best players. You see him right now with a Jackson Dart from USC. What's the kid's name? Zachary Evans from TCU. Michael Trigg also from the USC. Like, those are kids that you want to be able to bring to the program. And as you see right now, Mike Norvell was one of the few coaches that didn't do this. He didn't bring former players on his offensive line to this program. Napier has done that. Lincoln Riley has done that. And Lane Kiffin, to me, is someone that is already familiar with the South Florida area, being at FAU down here. And also, he's someone that was in the running for the Miami job. And to me, Lane Kiffin, he might not be here for a long time, but I think he'd be here actually for a decent amount of time to make us competitive once again when we make our move to the SEC.
When he leaves, you're going to get recruiting violations, but damn, that ride while he's here.
Yeah. Hey, I think those are some good ones. So I agree that I want a lot of FBS experience, Power 5 head coaching. I don't want someone young. I wouldn't want Aranda because I don't think he's been there long enough, although I do think he's done a great job. Mel Tucker, I don't think we could afford. His buyout would be astronomical.
It's obscene.
Because I am saying, I do think in this hypothetical, we should be considering, what's realistic. Like, for instance, I would really like Luke Fickell. I don't think he would ever come coach at Florida State. I just think he's a Big Ten guy, and that's where he wants to be. My first
can't go the
target,
Group of 5 route either after Mike Norvell.
Yeah.
right? Well, that too. Well, yeah, but that one would be a little.
Mike
Yeah,
Norvell
whatever.
meet him twice. So,
Yeah, that's fair. No, mine is going to come a little out of left field, but mine would be it'd be the Storm and Mormon, Kyle Whittingham, who has taken Utah to 144-70 record as a head coach. He's been at Utah for almost 2 decades now in one capacity or another. So if you can get him, you're not he's a loyal guy. He's only making $4.1 million, so we could double his salary once we don't have to pay Taggart anymore. And he beat Mario Cristobal not once, but twice in the same year. So not a bad guy to have running your football program.
Oh, yeah. I think he's a top 5 coach in the country, but that's kind of why I said at the beginning of that, I'm like, I don't think that guy would ever leave Utah. I think he's been there for just way too long. I think he coached actually at BYU or played at BYU or
He played
Utah.
at BYU, yeah.
He's
He actually
been
is
there
Mormon, by the way. I wasn't just saying that because he's in Utah.
Yeah,
I confirmed he is LDS.
Yeah, I just think he's been there for so long. It's like, what does he actually benefit from going somewhere else? That was just more my thing.
Well, I think we could double his salary. I looked it up before we had this discussion. He makes 4.1 a year, and I legitimately believe we could pay a coach 8. And that's
a whole separate combo, right? Like, what's our actual budget for this? Because that changes the game.
I think our budget is going to be up. Basically,
I think it'd be between. I think it'd be between 8 and 10.
Yeah.
Because I think we're going to look at what we pay Norvell plus Willie. I think is going to be the budget for the next coach. And that's why I picked Kyle Whittingham, right? Because what I just said about Fickell, probably a Big Ten guy, you couldn't get him away. Whittingham has been at Utah since 2005, and again, 144-70. Like, that's low key, really, really good, especially considering, he had to follow up Urban Meyer. He was also on Urban Meyer's staff the whole time Urban was at Utah. He's got a lot of pedigree, and again, only making, I can't believe I'm saying only in front of this number, but that's the state of college football. He's only making $4.1 million a year. So you would have the juice, I think, to go steal him away.
And I really do like Kyle Whittingham. Like, if we somehow made that hire, I would be stoked. Is it crazy of me to think though? I want somebody with either SEC experience or championship team experience.
That's not crazy at all. I'm totally with you, and that is another appeal of Whittingham, though, right? He was a linebacker, then a linebackers coach, then a DC, and he coached for Urban Meyer back when they went undefeated and stuff. So, you're right. He's never won a national championship, but he's won Pac-12 championships. He's played for I mean, besides all the off the field stuff, one of the best coaches of the past 20 years when it comes to X's and O's, who basically invented the spread offense. And again, he's a defensive minded, defense first coach. And you think what he could do with maybe ACC, but possibly SEC level recruiting on the defensive side of the ball, I think he would be a really, really attractive option for all those reasons.
No, I agree with that. I just think there's a better chance of Rihanna returning my messages than actually us him bringing over Tallahassee.
Hey, but we would have said that about Brian Kelly to LSU. I mean, no joke. I think that is about on par with that hire, I think. But you're right. I think y'all's options are probably a little more likely. Let's get to tier 2 after I say thank you to our title sponsor today, LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs lets you post your jobs, lets you find good recruits. It's what I used for job hunting when I was going through that process. I think it's the best organizer of it. I think that the way they let you, see the company profiles and you can see people who work there and stuff. It's just a more intuitive platform. So check out linkedin.com/lockedoncollege if you're trying to post a job, and you can post it there for free. And if you're not posting a job, but you're looking for a job, check out LinkedIn Jobs. That should be your number one source for the old job hunt. All right, tier 2, gentlemen. Or actually, conversely, or alternatively, let me say this. Drake, can you either give me your second option for head coach, or if there's any coordinators you have in mind that you'd really like to see join the new head coach?
So
you don't have to have coordinators, and you don't have to have a number 2. That's kind of an either.
Yeah, my number 2 is most likely Dave Aranda, mainly because I think I'm not going to go too deep with that because Dave, I think, made a really good point. Defensive-minded head coach. I think he actually has strong recruiting ties. He also has the championship pedigree while he's at LSU. Coordinator-wise, me personally, I would love to find a way. Now, since you brought Kyle Whittingham here, I'll go a little more further out, just for something that's probably not attainable. I would love to see either someone like maybe Brian Hartline, the wide receivers coach, actually at Ohio State, and bring him to see actually how he could coordinate an offense over here. Maybe do it in tandem with Alex Atkins, because I think regardless of who the next head coach is, Alex Atkins will be with the staff in some capacity. Maybe actually as the HC if we go to the third option.
That was going to be my number 2 is Alex Atkins.
Yeah, I know. So that's why I had to put that out there real quick before we did that. Yeah. But with to coordinators, maybe that, or go get a Jim Knowles, the former Oklahoma State DC, because that actually I think was a very elite hire. I would say, if you asked me this a year ago, I would say Alex Grinch, but that kind of name has probably fallen by the wayside a little bit.
Yeah. And just the premise of the question, I really think coordinators with no head coaching experience are totally eliminated from this conversation, because if you're right, and we're going to have an $8 to $10 million budget, we're making a big boy hire. We're doing what we thought, oh crap, we probably should have done this and just hired Bob Stoops or something 2 years ago. Number 2 for me is a guy that has already been to Florida State, and he had both fans and non-fans, and it was Mark Stoops. He has done a good job.
You guys are stealing mine. That was my number 3. So if you're going to eliminate coordinators, I was going to say Mark Stoops. Yeah.
Done a good job at Kentucky. I think we can afford him.
No. He has done a prolific job at Kentucky. I mean, can I interrupt you with one quick anecdote? Okay. We're going to Louisville this year for the game, right? Because I have 2 very good friends that live in Louisville, big Louisville fans, give a lot of money to Louisville, real money. Yeah. They work in the liquor industry. That's how I met them. We met through work. Do you know where they both graduated from?
Kentucky.
Because Kentucky people care so little about football historically that living in Louisville, which is an hour and a half away from their alma mater, they said, we'll just go to Louisville games, and then became fans being in the city, started giving money. The amount of Kentucky alumni I met that they're still Kentucky basketball fans. Right. But that's a program that has never cared about football. They lost to UF 26 times in a row. And he's now taken them to 2 10-win seasons of the last 4 years and 4 consecutive, not bowl appearances, but 4 consecutive bowl wins coming out of the hardest conference in the country. And it's what the hell could he do at a school that gives a crap about football?
He said 2 10-win seasons at Kentucky.
2 10-win seasons at Kentucky. Like what?
It's in the SEC. Yeah.
I think Mark. I think it's more like Mark. It's like basically, it's like you ever seen that meme where it's like, oh, I want Bob Stoops. Hey, no, we got Stoops at home, and then you see a picture of Mark Stoops in his old FSU outfit. It probably is sexy. It's probably the right hire. It's not sexy. That's the problem with it. It's not. It's like it's it's a good hire, but it's
not sexy. It's not sexy because when he was here, he ran that bend but don't break defense that just drove you nuts when you saw teams just drive down the field and ended in touchdowns. And like the idea was, well, if we do this consistently enough, eventually it won't end in touchdowns. And that pissed a lot of people off. But again, like you said, what he's done in Kentucky is nothing short of a miracle. And if he can do that there, a program with a lot less resources and commitment to football, and a school in just it had never been in a position like Florida State is include like in terms of ability to recruit. Even now, like even when we're down, we can pick up infinitely better recruits than Kentucky. So if he can do that, what he's doing there, he could theoretically do a lot better than the last two hires here.
I'd also like to point out he came on with Jimbo right after Bobby Bowden. So you're right. I mean, I know his defense was frustrating, but it was a good defense. They recruited a lot of really good players.
Right.
And I would argue that you could say he was part of a turnaround effort. I mean,
definitely.
He set up the defense that,
Pruitt and then Kelly.
That Pruitt was able to use to win a national championship. Now, obviously, Pruitt brought a lot. I'm not taking away from him, but the players were recruited by Jimbo and Stoops. And I would go as far to say, I think Stoops may be one of the very rare cases where he is a better head coach than he was a coordinator.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a skill. Look, they're different skill sets. And to the not sexy thing, again, could not agree more. There is nothing sexy about bringing back Mark Stoops to Florida State. But we've tried sexy twice, right? We tried to go get the lifelong Florida State fan stolen from Oregon.
I would not say Norvell was a sexy hire.
No, he's talking about Taggart.
No, but I think even Taggart or even Norvell was a little like, oh, but he's been at Memphis. He's up and coming. He's young. He's like a Baptist preacher. He's firebrand. Obviously, we know Bob Stoops was our first choice, but like he was kind of looked at as the like splashy. We think this is gonna, dude. No. Just go get the guy who's taken a team that doesn't care about football and won a bunch of games. And like, let's just get the guy that's going to win football games.
Right. We need the next guy doesn't necessarily need to be the guy who's going to win us a national championship. Obviously that'd be great, but getting a guy who's going to get us back to 10-win seasons where we're like not too far from competing for playoff spots, that's ideal. We know what we're getting with him. And at this point, that's a huge deal for us.
Is this blasphemy or like sacrilege to say this? Like, I wouldn't mind what you're saying. Like, I wouldn't mind having 6 or 7 years, 5 or 6 years maybe, under a Mark Richt that sets us up for a Kirby Smart, where it's like, we're having 10-win seasons, we're recruiting well, people care about the program again, and maybe they don't get us back to over the hump, but then we can get to the point where it's like, hey, let's just move on from this and then go get the really next guy.
No, that's fine because the end result is you raising a trophy. So if if you're fine with the rebuild and you're fine with building the foundation, basically we're just not almost there. Sometimes people aren't closers. Dave can say it right now with his own bullpen right now with the Yankees. Like not everyone's built to be a closer. So that's typically Mark Richt wasn't, Kirby Smart was, but without Mark Richt, you don't get Kirby Smart and you don't get a championship from last year.
Well, and you don't get that next coach who's going to win you the championship without a coach before that who's winning games and bringing in recruits. That just doesn't happen.
The main thing.
C, gentlemen. All right, there's one elephant in the room we got to cover. If we are doing hypotheticals and we are talking about the next head coach, and y'all know what that is, we have to talk about Deion Sanders. And I want us to flesh out a little more of Alex Atkins as head coach, because I think I can already see it now in the comments. Those are the two names that are going to pop up. So I think we've kind of given our wish list. Let's talk about the names that people are going to want to hear about. Real quick, though, betonline.net is our number one partner for all gambling. Guys, there's lots of places you can put your money. There's lots of games you can put your money on. So be at the place that has the most resources, not just the most lines for you to put your money on, but also resources that will help you learn more about what you're doing and make smarter decisions. So go to Bet Online, where the game starts. Hey, folks, real quick, we love you. We appreciate you. You are our entire world, because without you, we don't get to do this. And without doing this, we'd probably lose our minds. So thank you for coming back time after time, week after week, month after month to support Locked On Seminoles. Hit the subscribe button. That's fine. Or don't, and just keep coming back and watching and tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Either way, it genuinely means a ton that y'all listen to us and take the time to engage with us and let us have this, tiny little Florida State community we've got rolling. So thank you for the time that you give us, and we hope you enjoy the time that we give back to you. So guys, let's talk about the fan favorites. We can start with either one. I think we probably start Atkins.
That's fine.
No, I've got a better idea. Drake, you're going to present the case for Deion. I will present the case for Atkins, and Dave, you're going to be the first reactor to each, but we will go around the horn on it.
Okay.
So, Drake, Deion Sanders, head coaching candidate. You don't have to sell us on why he has to be the guy, but what's the appeal there? Why do you think he's a strong candidate?
Well, before I get into that, I will say how Alex Atkins is my number 3 before we do this. For Deion, I think the primary thing is that he has shown to be a really good recruiter. When you actually do see it is hard to convince certain, kids that, have 5-star talent and, the accolades and the offers of Alabama, Georgia, Miami. I mean, people, think of the Travis Hunter thing as the first time he did that. He got several 4-star commitments the year before, actually, and 2 of them actually were from the University of Florida. 2, also, he has his brand. The brand is huge. The brand's massive. His connections with Under Armour, too. He actually was one of the few athletes to help start the Under Armour All-American game, which he has, basically the facilities and connections with not only that program, but also all the high schools that are connected with that as well. And he's just shown that even at Jackson State, he was 11-1 last year in the regular season, with his only loss being to a University of Louisiana Monroe. Now, he did lose to South Carolina State in the Celebration Bowl, so he was 11-2. And one of the big things that we saw was his defense actually was very, very strong, and that's because, point 3, the staff around him actually is pretty decent and pretty solid. So, to me, if you bring Deion as a figurehead, as a CEO type of coach, which I think he'd be perfectly fine with, kids already gravitate towards him. If you give him a war chest to get great assistants around him, quite frankly, what we thought with Willie Taggart as a head coach here could honestly be what you get with Deion Sanders.
Yeah. So everything Drake said is right. If you look at the staff he's got at JSU, he has no business having that staff at a FCS school. And obviously, Travis Hunter has no business getting recruits like that. But that's the allure. And it would satisfy a lot of fans who feel like it's just blasphemy that Florida State isn't even considering Deion Sanders. I will say, however, to me, and I hope I could be wrong about this one day, feels like a gimmick hire. And it feels like we just made 2 of those, like you said, Max. I don't think you can miss 3 times in a row. I think you have to be very sure about this next hire. And Deion Sanders does not have a lot of head coaching experience or coaching experience at the college level, for that matter. If you're talking about the next coach needing to be the setup guy, needing to get us back to consistency in 10-win seasons and knowing what you're getting, you're not getting that with Deion Sanders. It's a splash, but you're not sure what you're going to get.
Yeah, well, or look, the next guy could be the guy. I'm totally fine with that too. We don't have to have an in between. I gimmick hire may be a bit strong, but what I will say is I think Deion is a one-trick pony. I think that what you get with Deion, and Drake made a very good point before we were recording about, you do get opened up to a lot of doors, and there's opportunities that he can plug kids into, and he does get to say, hey, I can help you learn how to handle the fame and all this stuff. But I wonder, one, does he really open that many more doors than the other big blue blood programs open? So while it may be a great pitch at Jackson State, is it really going to be that competitive of a pitch when you're here? Secondly, I don't think he's a serious coach. I just don't. I think that Deion is very concerned with the brand of Deion.
That's what I meant by gimmick, by the way.
Yeah, but I'm saying from his perspective, I don't think coaching is his main focus. I think it's a focus of his. But I think he also he enjoys content creation. He enjoys his business ventures. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I'm not saying that makes him a bad guy, but I think to succeed at this level, you need someone that eats, breathes, and sleeps coaching and recruiting, not someone that, wants to be on TV and wants to kind of have that media presence and do all those things. Again, no disrespect to him. That's fine that he enjoys doing that. I just think there's a reason you don't see any major Power 5 coaches doing that. I don't think the two are compatible. And finally, I think there would be a lot of stuff that we may not even be fully aware of that you'd have to unravel for Deion to even be eligible to take the job. I have to imagine there's conflicts of interest with some of his business interests in Barstool and their betting stuff through Penn Gaming. Yep. That's just one thing, but I think that I know there's also the college degree problem, which I think, by the way, is a stupid rule, but that is a legitimate thing you'd have to figure out a way around, where there's a rule that FBS head coaches have to have a college degree. Again, I don't agree with that, and I think that that'll change as you see more and more 3-year guys, NFL coming back. But I think there's some issues. I do think the positive of Deion, though, is the recruiting. Final point, that's all anyone talks about with him. Drake, you did a better job than anyone I've ever heard articulating why he'd be a good candidate, but it's always about, well, he'll get the best kids. He'll get the best kids.
He'll get a foot in the door with recruits.
Deion Sanders retired from the NFL like around the time most of these current recruits are born. I'm not saying he's not great, and what we all remember primetime, but we also all remember VCRs. Like, go ask your average 10th grader what a VCR is. They won't know. They may have heard of it.
Wouldn't him, though, being a very damn good head coach, actually at his alma mater, be even better for his brand? So, like, that also kind of be like a quid pro quo. Like, if I come back and actually lead my alma mater back to the promised land, like when I was there, wouldn't that kind of be in the benefit of both parties? Like, if Deion might love some Deion, and like doing that might help him out immensely. And then also with the head coaching thing, I don't think Dad was a good head coach at all, period. Like, basically, he wasn't even a head coach at all, or even a coordinator, until they got the head coaching job at Clemson. And we all know damn well that he's not a good coach, because Brent Venables gone now. We'll see how the defense is. Tony Elliott, Jeff Scott, the offense has floundered since they were gone, and he took over play calling duties last year. So with the coaching thing, I don't think it's as strong as we need it to be anymore, because we wanted to have these coaches to be the CEO type of thing. We talked on Monday about the micromanaging stuff with Norvell. It gets to point out that maybe you just need to surround yourselves with the best people that actually are at their disposal with their tools.
Well, one, I think also very valid points. But one, Clemson didn't have a lot to lose by hiring Dabo. Clemson hadn't won a national championship in 30 years at that point. They had just gotten, or was it they had just gotten absolutely skunked by West Virginia, or maybe that was his first season. But Clemson
wasn't, I think, his second year.
Yeah, Clemson wasn't in a great place as a program. Like they struck gold with Dabo, but they weren't where we are, a decade removed from a national championship, 9 years from a playoff appearance, and having made 2 bad coaching hires. Like, they were just kind of like, okay, we'll try Dabo, see how it goes. I think that you're right. Would it be good for his brand? Yeah, absolutely. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about him spending too much time promoting that brand that it's good for. I don't know if Deion would. Maybe he would. I don't think he would have an interest in doing that, saying, I'm going to spend 4 years away from the media, becoming a great coach, and then I'll try to rebrand myself. I think his brand has always been in the spotlight, and I think he just legitimately likes doing it. And I don't think it's something, he can give up. Maybe he could. I don't know. But I think it's, I don't know.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say is it's funny because we had that tweet about how if you're starting college at Miami this year, you've never seen Miami finish top 10. Well, to your point, I was born in 89. I'm the oldest of all our friends. And Deion graduated FSU in 88.
Yep.
That's a long time ago. Like, what was his last year in the NFL? It had to have, I think it was 2001. So that was 21 years ago. If you're starting college, you have never seen.
Okay, 05.
Play with the Ravens.
Okay, so 17 years ago. So that's almost the same thing as the Miami situation. It's like, if you're turning 18, you have never seen him play football like since you were born, except on highlight tape.
Right. Like, do people really remember that Jim Harbaugh was a great NFL QB?
The whole point of all this being that, like, prime matters, like his brand matters. And like you said, Max, that's his big focus. That makes me worry, but obviously it matters enough for a guy like Travis Hunter to care. Will that continue to translate, and will he make his priority not growing the Deion brand, but making Florida State the best possible college football spot it can be? I don't know. Yes, they align to some degree, but if that's not your priority and yourself is your priority, I don't know that, like you said, Max, I just don't know that that's what we're looking for right now in this time of inconsistency and just being down.
And I don't know that, and I'm not, I guess to Drake's point, I'm not saying it wouldn't be a priority of his. He would want to win. He'd want to do well. He'd want to build up the program. But to be a great Power 5 head coach, that needs to be your sole focus.
Right.
It can't be a priority. It's got to be the priority. The only thing you're thinking about anyway. But finally, moving on to coordinators is Alex Atkins. I
believe that's your turn.
Yeah. So look, I think Alex Atkins has proven to be the best recruiter on this staff by a mile. And most of the time, coaches are either great recruiters or they're great coaches. But he's also proven to be the best developer of talent on this team. You look at the guys we had playing O-line last year, and they really weren't all that great, most of them. And you could tell that they all got better than the year before, right? You see legitimate improvement. You see guys who are learning the technical aspects of the position and becoming the best versions of themselves at that. So when I see a guy that can both coach players and can recruit, that to me is head coaching material. Now, the knocks against him are, we don't know what he's going to look like as an OC. So can he draw out a whole game plan? Can he do all that? We also don't know, can he organize a whole program? Could he be in that CEO role? We don't know. So I think there's too many question marks around him to hire him as the head coach. But I also think there's a lot of upside, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was one of the main candidates in consideration.
Yeah. So just as an incidental point, and this doesn't really matter, but I think it would piss a lot of people off that Odell Hagen's never got a shot, and then suddenly Alex Atkins comes in and immediately gets a shot. But putting that aside, that's not a main reason. Like you said, there's so little known about his ability as anything besides an offensive line coach and recruiter. Right. We were talking earlier about coordinators. This is a guy who will, during the season, have just been learning on the job as a coordinator. So forget head coaching experience. He will have almost no coordinator experience.
Right.
Yes, best recruiter and coach on the staff. I would totally agree with that. Too many question marks. If we're going to start the premise of this as the next guy we're willing to pay $8 to $10 million, then that just sets up the conversation for it can't be a hire that we're not sure of. You're going to pay $8 to $10 million. You're going to hire somebody, their name, and everybody you're walking him into as your head coach knows their name. And has proven it on the field at other places. Just can't happen, unfortunately.
I think Atkins is someone that has to be involved with the next staff, regardless of whether he's coordinator actually or the head coach, the way for continuity purposes.
Yep.
I do think that basically he's going to be able to juggle both, being an offensive coordinator and an offensive line coach. We never asked Dillingham how he was able to do both when he was the QB coach, but I don't know why that's never come up with Atkins or with Dillingham. And then at Charlotte, he was the offensive coordinator and the offensive line coach there. He also was the run game coordinator. And quite honestly, I think
Power 5 level.
Power 5 level. That's right. That's more fair. So I just think it's more that with Alex Atkins, I have full faith in him to be finally the person to tell Norvell, no, we're not going to do that.
Yep.
We had a very, I think Max, you put it perfectly the word, Dillingham and Norvell had this Vulcan mind meld between the two of them actually, and seeing let's do this. Oh, that sounds great. And then it just was highly ineffective.
It was an echo chamber. How I felt. I didn't feel like you need a certain degree of conflict, right? Because conflict produces better outcomes most of the time. Not conflict, but conflicting ideas. And I never felt like we saw that from Dillingham.
Yeah, and we also saw the same issue being one of the primary things that I saw with Taggart and Kendall Briles. Taggart wanted to run the ball more because you have someone in a Cam Akers. Kendall, with his 3 to 5 plays and his one sheet of paper, didn't want to actually do that at all, period. He wanted to throw the ball with a pretty, decent receiving core, as in basically all you have is Tamori and Terry and nobody else around him, and an offensive line covering James Blackman, who's as mobile as myself, running jet sweeps, which is not fast at all. So to me, overall, I think with Atkins being there to say no and saying we should do this instead is going to be actually huge for this offense moving forward. And quite honestly, someone that you kind of want actually at the helm.
Yeah, I don't have any doubt, by the way, about his impact on the team this coming year. I think it's probably a case of wrong place, wrong time, where 5 to 7 years from now, I bet you this would be a different answer. I have full faith and confidence he's going to be a great coordinator and then go on to be a great head coach. Just the way he's carried himself here, the way he's recruited, against all odds, the way he's developed the worst position group in all of Power 5 at one point and turned it into a serviceable unit. Like he's going to be a good head coach. Just can't do it right now at Florida State.
I think.
I think that's a very valid point. And I think those are fair points all around, gentlemen. I'm glad we got to have this hypothetical conversation. I hope that it doesn't come to pass because look, the three of us, we love this school. We love this football team. I don't care about being right when it comes to who I think is a good coach and who's not. I know the guys, sitting in this room with me, they don't care about that either. If Mike Norvell wants to go out there and go undefeated this year and go to a New Year's Six Bowl, that is awesome. I will become the biggest Mike Norvell fan in the world. We're just telling you what we're seeing, and we're just doing what our job is, and that is to give you analysis. But I sincerely hope that this hypothetical never comes to pass and that Mike Norvell, at the end of the year, we're sitting there with 8 or 9 wins going, man, we were so close to a 10 or 11 win season, and it's not even a discussion. So thanks for rocking and rolling with us today. We hope you all liked it. If you have more topics that you'd like us to cover like this, we are always happy to rock some hypotheticals, so let us know. That was Drake. That was Dave. I'm Max. And this was Locked On Seminoles.
Take care, everybody. Let's hope we're wrong.
Go Nolan.